Good morning, I'm Danie Laurel. It is Friday, the 17th of April, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. First on the agenda, after months in hiding and a string of explosive allegations, former Congressman Zaldy Co has finally been arrested. President Bongbong Marcos confirms Co was apprehended in Prague, the Czech Republic, after allegedly entering without proper documents. Here is that report.
Sana po ay hindi nila ako mapatay bago ko mailabas ang lahat.
That was the warning from former Congressman Zaldy Co as he dropped a series of bombshell allegations linked to the multi-billion peso flood control scandal last year. Co accused President Bongbong Marcos and former Speaker Martin Romualdez of orchestrating 100 billion peso in budget insertions for the 2025 national budget. Co claimed the directive came during the bicameral conference, alleging that Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman relayed instruction from the President, which later confirmed by Adrian Bersamin.
Tinawagan ko po si dating Speaker Martin Romualdez at nireport ko ang instructions ng Presidente to insert the 100 billion projects. At sinabi niya sa akin, what the President wants, he gets.
He insisted he was being made a scapegoat and even claimed he was told to leave the country. Malacanang and others accused have denied all allegations. Co left for the United States last year, supposedly for medical treatment, but never returned. He later resigned from his post as congressman and was declared a fugitive from justice. Now, after months of hiding and a series of explosive revelations, Co has finally been arrested. President Marcos confirmed that Co was apprehended in Prague, Czech Republic, after attempting to enter the country without proper documentation. He is now detained under the custody of Czech authorities. The Philippine government is currently coordinating with the Czech government for his possible return to the country. The Philippine National Police says it is working with international law enforcement to verify details of arrest. PNP Chief Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. added, the PNP is ready to assist and ensure that all legal processes are followed, including his possible repatriation. Co faces graft and malversation charges in connection with a 289 million peso flood control project in Nawahan, Oriental Mindoro. A warrant of arrest had earlier been issued and the Sandigan Bayan had cancelled his passport. Co has denied the charges.
Meanwhile, the Sandigan Bayan continues its bail hearing today for the malversation case involving former Senator Bong Revilla and his co-accused. For more details, we go live to Mobile Journal Arles de los Santos. Arles, ano ang mga inaasahang mangyayari today?
Dani, nandito nga tayo ngayon sa Sandigan Bayan at ito yung isa sa mga araw na bahagi ng bail hearing ni dating Senador Bong Revilla at ng mga kapwa-akusado nito kaugnay ng kasong malversation para sa 76 million pesos nga na perang inilabas sa isang flood control project sa Pandibulacan, pero ang kabuuan ng budget na inallocate doon ay nasa 92.8 million pesos. Noong mga nakaraang araw ay personal na binisita ng mga huskado ng Sandigan Bayan yung mismong lokasyon na nakalagay nga doon sa project implementation plan para sa flood control project sa Pandibulacan, pero walang nakitang istruktura doon. Pero itinanggi ng isa sa mga council ng mga akusado na talagang walang proyekto doon dahil baka daw may posibilidad na nakalubog yung mga bakal o yung mga sheet pile doon sa ibang bahagi ng area kung saan nga supposedly ay nakatayo yung proyekto na yun. Ang ngayon, Dani, araw ay nakatakda na humarap ang witness ng prosekusyon na si dating Bulacan First District Engineering Office Engineer Henry Alcantara na ngayon ay nasa pangangalaga ng Witness Protection Program ng ating pamahalaan. At kung matatandaan natin, Dani, itong si Alcantara ang isa sa mga nagdawit sa dating senador na si Bong Revilla dahil anila kasama ito sa mga personalidad at dating mga nasa posisyon ng mga siwa sa budget insertion at nakatanggap ng kickbacks na umabot nga sa nasa 20 to 30%. Pero Dani, dito partikular sa kaso na ito, ang kailangan i-breach ng at least prosecution sa ating pag-obserba at base na rin sa mga nagdaang mga pagdinig ay kung paano nga ba pinacilitate ng Bulacan First District Engineering Office yung paglipat ng pondo at kung paano nga ba ito napunta kay Senador Bong Revilla. Dahil may mga agam-agam o yung ilang mga ating tagapakinig na sinasabing hindi nga daw si Senador Bong Revilla yung proponent nito. Na ngayon naman, at titignan natin kung magiging matagumpay nga ba yung prosekusyon na pag-ugnayin ang mga alegasyon na ito.
Arles, pa-explain nga kasi in my understanding yung malversation non-bailable charge siya, 'di ba? So bakit po may bail hearing pa? For what purpose yun?
Yes, Danny. So dito kasi sa Sandigan Bayan, no, dalawa yung kinaharap na kaso ni dating Senador Bong Revilla at yung mga kapwa-akusado nito. So at least for the graft case, that is bailable. Kaya nakapag-hain na siya ng bail. So that was 90,000 on the first days na nandito siya. And then itong malversation case, ito ay non-bailable. Tama ka doon, Danny. No? Pero kasi hindi dapat ipagkait sa isang individual, isang Pilipino lalo, na magkaroon ng pagkakataon para sa kanyang kalayaan. No? Kaya naman dahil kahit non-bailable, itong kaso niya, pwede pa rin siyang mag-file o maghain ng kanyang bail petition. No? At ito yung dahilan kung bakit merong bail hearing ngayon. Dahil kailangan timbangin ng prosekusyon, ng husgado mismo ng Sandigan Bayan kung malakas nga ba o mahina yung mga ebidensya na inilalatag nga laban sa dating senador at dito sa kanyang mga kapwa-akusado. At kung mapapatunayan, Dani, na mabigat nga yung mga ebidensya at mga testimonya laban sa kanya, baka nga hindi siya mapabigyan sa kanyang hiling na palayain. No? Pero kung mahina ito, baka may pagkakataon no, na mapagbigyan siya ng korte at makalaya nga. Pero kung mapagbigyan man siya na makalaya, Dani, pansamantala lamang ito, patuloy pa din na gugulong yung paglilitis sa kanya at patuloy pa rin babantayan yung paglabas-pasok niya sa bansa dahil may mga lookout bulletin na kailangan at requirement kung kakailanganin man lumabas ng bansa.
Okay. Arles, meron pa bang susunod na bail hearings or ito na yon?
Meron pa, Dani, no? Nasa May 20, 21, 22 hanggang 24. Kung tama alala natin, no? Kasi 10 days itong hearing na ito at kailangan within 30 calendar days ay maibigay na din yung desisyon dito. No? So ngayon, Dani, May is fast approaching. Sa unang linggo ng May ay inaasahan na ilalabas yung desisyon kung pagbibigyan nga ba ang hiling ni Revilla at mga kapwa-akusado nito na makalaya ng pansamantala.
Alright, thank you for those updates, mobile journalist Arles De Los Santos. In other news, the Commission on Audit is ordering the return of millions of pesos in confidential funds from the Office of the Vice President. The Commission says the OVP failed to explain whether the use of the said funds was proper. Marian Enriquez has this report.
73.287 million pesos in confidential funds. That's what the Commission on Audit, or COA, is requiring to be returned by the Office of the Vice President based on the issued notice of disallowance. This amount comes from the 125 million pesos secret budget allocated to Sara Duterte's OVP spent during December 2022. This decision by the COA and bank is considered a significant development in the confidential funds debate. This now puts a stop to the OVP's continuing use of still pending with COA excuse on questions whether their use of the controversial budget 4 years ago was above board or not. This means the matter is already closed. However, the Vice President's camp can still bring the matter to the Supreme Court. But in the 22-page COA and bank decision, they found that the Office of VP Sara failed to submit the necessary justification or clarification for their confidential expenses. The OVP also failed to show proof that their confidential operations were successful. It appears that 69.7 million pesos of this was used by the Vice President for payment for cash rewards, various goods, and medicines. Previously, the Vice President's camp presented a general statement in their accomplishment report stating that 100% of confidential activities were implemented without any untoward security-related incident. But COA maintained that this was not sufficient as the Vice President's camp did not present details or a breakdown of the expenses nor a narrative of successful information gathering or surveillance activities. There was also no indication that the funds were used for national security, hence cannot be considered confidential in nature. For House Public Accounts Committee Chairperson and Bicol Saro Party List Representative Terry Ridon, COA's affirmation of findings is clear.
I think as far as the House is concerned, it will basically rise to a level of an impeachable offense, no? Particularly betrayal of public trust. No?
Manila 3rd District Representative Joel Chua also believes that even without including the testimony of the alleged former aide and bagman of Duterte, Ramil Madriaga, the impeachment complaints against the Vice President will still stand, especially with the NBI findings showing similarities in the handwriting of those who signed the acknowledgement receipts for the confidential funds.
Former Presidential Chief Legal Counsel Attorney Salvador Panelo dismissed the testimony of Ramil Madriaga during the House Committee on Justice hearing on the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte. In an interview with Storycon, Panelo said Madriaga's statements lacked credibility. He noted that the resource person gave conflicting accounts and made several false statements during the hearing. Panelo also stressed that the photos and videos presented by Madriaga do not prove anything.
Ngayon ko lang nakita mukha niyan. Tapos tinawagan ko yung mga staff ng Malacanang noon. Sir, di namin kilala yan. Baka ngayon lang namin nakakilala yan, nakikita ang pangalan yan. Wala, kahit sinong tanungin mo na malapit kay Bongo, malapit kay PRD, hindi siya kilala eh. Yung mga PSC, hindi rin siya kilala. Madaling sabi, puro kasinungalingan niya. Ang totoo lang, yung kasinungalingan niya, yung totoo yun, nagsisinungaling siya. Meron pa isang bagay, no? Ang kapansin-pansin, yung mga dinideklara niya, parang narinig ko na dati yan kay Trillanes.
Now, don't go away. We will be back with more stories after this short break. Good morning, I'm Danie Laurel, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. Motorists may see another round of fuel price cuts next week. That's according to the Department of Energy. An industry source said diesel prices could drop up to 15 pesos per liter, while gasoline may become cheaper by nearly 3 pesos per liter. Energy officials noted that the downward trend could continue if global market conditions remain stable in the coming days. However, they warned that any escalation of tensions in the Gulf region could reverse the trend and push fuel prices back up.
Mukhang meron, pero hindi ko pa sa'yo masabi kung magkano. Pero based on the last 4 days, mukhang meron significant naman na rollback for Tuesday next week.
But exporters are scaling back operations due to declining orders and rising costs amid the Middle East conflict. That's according to the Philippine Exporters Confederation. PhilExport says members in key sectors are seeing fewer orders and delayed shipments, forcing them to cut work days from 6 to as low as 3 and scale back production and investments. Costs have risen by 10 to 30%, driven by fuel, logistics, and raw materials, but exporters say these cannot be fully passed on to buyers. They are now seeking fuel subsidies, tax relief, and export incentives, warning they may only sustain operations for 3 to 6 months without assistance. And the International Monetary Fund warns that the Philippines is in a, quote, difficult situation, as its heavy reliance on oil imports leaves it exposed to the ongoing energy shock from the Middle East conflict. With growth now seen slowing and cost pressures building, what does this mean for the broader economy and local businesses? To help us break this down, we are joined by Ronilo Balbiera, an economist from the University of Asia and Pacific. Welcome back, Prof.
Good morning. Good morning again, Dr. Danie.
Prof, okay, we are a couple of months into this situation, so hopefully we've been able to take stock of some of the things that have happened. The government has done its part, I hope, at least in buoying us for the time being. But let's go to the IMF's outwardly assessment that the Philippines is in a difficult situation. Is this in any shape or form shocking to you?
Well, the always answer to that is in relation to what? No? So we are in a difficult position in relation to our performance over the last 3 years. No? So remember that over the last 3 years, we did not achieve the lower target for our GDP. So that is without the oil crisis. Now with the oil crisis, that is we're beginning to actually to go towards our GDP target. No, then we have the oil crisis. Now we are facing the two difficult situation of resuming our disbursements for our infrastructure project, and then number two, addressing the oil price increases, and that will lead to higher inflation later on. No? So, yan yung sinasabi yan. We might actually now on the fourth straight year we might not able to achieve anything in as far as our GDP target is concerned.
Okay, let's focus on the oil crisis issue, no? Because looking back, medyo madami pang issues. May flood control pa, may infrastructure. But just the pressing issue. Finally, Energy Secretary Sharon Garin has stopped short of admitting that there is some level of price issue going on, that the government has stepped in. They have given the minimum rollbacks that need to happen. So there is a level of regulation now that is happening. Your comment on that, could this have been any earlier? Because all the other countries we've seen included some caps on the fuel prices. And finally, parang the government is stepping in with the pricing.
Well, there are two things, Doc Dani, no? So, this is just a case of our government should have actually got out in the open and says this will be a minor thing as far as the whole economy is concerned. Therefore, there is no need to panic, and that panic actually led to buying more oil than what we actually need, and the number two, hoarding. That's what I've been saying over the last 4 weeks, and lo and behold, I'm vindicated with our government catching so many hoarders of oil. No? So there's really no reason to panic because the law of supply will kick in. No? So this rollback is actually a result, no, not more. Two things, no. Number one, because the situation in the Middle East is relaxing, but at the same time, this is also parang nahimasmasan tayo, no. Meron nga pala talagang supply, and that the world's problem is actually global oversupply weeks or just 2 to 3 weeks before the Middle East tension. So now that the situation has actually now got into more relaxed situation, then we can now see that the oil price will actually slowly return back to its original level.
Okay, pero parang nag-snowball effect na kasi, di ba? Lumabas na yung ayuda, tapos nagta-transport strike na, tapos nag-cut ng work days. The exports, they're cutting to 3 days from 6. I mean, are these things irreversible or reversible in terms of now if the oil prices are able to be abated in the near term? Are all of these things, at least, we're only in the second quarter of the year, masasalvage pa ba natin ang growth for the year? Or inevitable na ba tong 3.7% of the World Bank, 4.1% of the IMF, Prof?
Well, may pag-asa pa tayo kung talagang ibigay natin yung na-delay na ayuda, no. So na-delay na mga na-cut on excise tax and hindi natin in-implement na VAT, no. So sobrang daming pinag-usapan about excise tax and VAT. No, una nalaglag yung VAT. So hindi nakasama doon sa emergency power yung VAT, no? And then nalaging excise tax. Tapos pagkatapos nating intayin yung deliberation nila ng excise tax, hindi napasama yung diesel sa excise tax. So parang ano ba yung gusto natin talagang gawin, no, to really, and then they're talking about targeted reform. No, so but at this point, no, so we are already going to our full second month of facing this crisis. No, so we should actually be giving what was actually due to the lower income part of our population, no, mula do sa lower middle income, sa lower income and up to the poor. No, so we have neglected, no, rolling out this particular intervention as soon as possible. So and now the things that we have been talking about for 3 years, no, digitalizing our government, making sure that our database for these poor, marginalized, vulnerable sectors of our economy should be digitalized so that on day one we should be able to transfer all this cash so that we can actually cushion this part of our crisis, no. So now siguro ituloy pa din nila, ni porke magro-rollback hindi mo na itutuloy yung ibang mga sinasabi natin. Kita mo yan, no, sa exports, they're asking, no, yung VAT pwede niyo bang ibaba kasi yung after we have receive our revenues, no, that we're gonna spend. They are not just exporters, they are consumers, they are Filipino families. So they're also exposed to that. So therefore, I think a minor suspension of excise tax and VAT, no, across the board will actually give us some reprieve, and therefore can contribute to the acceleration of circulation of income that will actually now push our economy further.
Prof, let's go to that excise tax issue kasi it was already announced that hindi gagawin dahil daw it affects or it gives reprieve to the richer parts of society. And then there was a PIDS report that came out yesterday basically saying that if they cut the excise taxes, parang there's a benefit of 4 times more for the richer compared to the poorer. And they actually said that targeted subsidies na lang ang gawin para sa mga mahihirap, which is now could rise to 14.4% poverty rate. Your thoughts on that? May point pa ba ang excise tax suspension at this point?
There is a
Ayuda na
point,
lang.
no? So why?
Okay.
Because kung ikaw yung kumikita ng pera, no? Saan mo ilalagay yung pera mo? Doon sa pagbabayad ng tax na for the last 2 to 3 years, our government has demonstrated that they cannot actually spend the money that we are actually paying, or you might as well use it directly. No? So
Totoo.
if you're gonna benefit the rich and the upper middle class and the middle income class for the excise tax and later on the VAT, so what's the problem if they will benefit 4 times? They are the ones, they are the employers, they are the entrepreneurs, they are the ones actually trying to look for ways to maintain their workers so that they can actually pay continually their workers. Sino ba nag-aabono ng mga sino ba ang nagbabigay? O sige, mag-work from home ka muna, etc. Sila. So why not do it, no? So because according to basic economics, no, it should be the government, who should be withdrawing from collecting so much tax and making sure that everybody spends in the time of crisis. There's no spending.
There's no spending. Another issue, Prof, I had Senator Win Gatchalian on my show, who, as you know very well, he's an economist, he's in the Energy Committee of the Senate, and then I asked him straightforward, bakit sa Vietnam, bakit sa ibang bansa, sa Singapore? These are not oil-producing companies, and they were able to cap the fuel prices. I think Prof. Leco said it's around 50 pesos per liter in the pump in Vietnam, diba? The equivalent. So, hindi siya nag-spill over dun sa ekonomiya nila. And he said that, well, we have a different way. We never subsidize fuel, diba? We use the subsidies in other ways. Targeted nga, as you mentioned, ayuda, which he says is better for the economy. Can you nuance that, especially now with the long-term issues on the Middle East? Can we open this conversation of pwede bang sa fuel na lang ang subsidies?
Well, pwede naman, no? So, kaya ang sinasabi natin, sabay-sabay naman yan. So, but of course, if we have a good database and digital system for our government, they can actually do it. Now, it was just, 4 days ago when there was a Senate hearing about these particular subsidies. How much have they actually dispersed? They have not actually even reached 45% or 50%. So there is that inefficiency for them to actually push the ayudas, the cash transfers, the Pantawid Pasada program, etc., etc. So they are inefficient in handling the money of the people. So therefore, if they are gonna do it, kumbaga, i-rewind natin ulit, reset, joke lang. Kunwari, March 1 ulit. So, how are we going to do it? Make sure that we are actually prepared for our database. Now, number 2, we should be able to announce to people what our plans are, so that people will not be panicking and not be imagining in their minds yung crisis na yon, kasi pinakamalaking meron naman palang plano yung gobyerno, meron naman pala kaming matatanggap, etc., etc. So that people can actually project the next 2 to 3 months, and so therefore panic will not be the enemy of all these interventions.
But Prof, you mentioned earlier on a very strong word that the situation in the Middle East is, quote, relaxing. What do you mean by that? Are you confident about that? And also, how does, I mean, we just reported the slowdown in exports and all of these things. Will the impact be felt still on unemployment, really in the long term? Or you feel that it's been contained? This was a fuel crisis, an energy crisis, diba? It stopped short of a national crisis. And perhaps with all of these things, at least the unemployment levels will stay okay. The poverty levels will be buoyed by the ayuda in the meantime at hindi naman magja-jump ng sobra, especially if we keep the oil prices lower. Give me your thoughts on that, the situation and long term.
Well, two things in your question. So first thing is in the situation in the Middle East. No? Just by the basic demand and supply of analyzing the problem. So ilagay natin yung utak natin sa mundo ng mga nagdedesisyon sa Middle East. No? So the trillionaires and the super leaders of the world. No? So there is a price wherein that there's a price of of the oil that will actually move the confusion of people, of oil consumers, no? The confusion between, do I actually need oil, or we are now certain that we hate oil and that we are certain that we will now shift away from oil. There is that price. And I think, looking at the charts, that's a price of around $120 to $130 per barrel. No? So, ibig sabihin, we did not hit that international oil price. Why? Because everybody will shift away from oil, and the trillionaires of the world will not allow that to happen. Their businesses evaporating because of that process. Now, so I think that particular economics of international oil will dictate that price will no longer increase unless hubris among the leaders will take in. So number two, so therefore, if that price stabilizes and later on we'll resume back to normal, what was the normal? The question is, what was the normal? The normal was there was global oversupply and the price of oil was actually half the level that we are experiencing right now. And we are about to go down that level over the next 3 to 4 months. If something will not happen for the next 3 to 4 months in the Middle East. So therefore, we are now back on track in terms of our target in the GDP, and therefore we must concentrate on our infrastructure. The BSP must now try to entertain another rate cut so that you can actually push the real estate, that will push construction, that will push everything in our economic activities.
Sorry, Prof, rate cut, not rate hike with the inflation numbers.
Yeah. What is our problem? The problem is spending. The problem is we don't have the money. So you have to make sure that you have the money and you have the ability to spend. Remember, we have not recovered from the real estate glut because of higher interest rate that led to higher amortization for our housing loans. No? So if you are to stimulate our economy, the fastest is construction because it has the biggest multiplier effect. So, but it has not recovered in relation to the private sector because there's still that real estate oversupply because you have a very high interest rate. And our central bank, our BSP, has stopped in the 4.25%. So there's still room. They said there's no room. That we started with 3% before the Ukraine-Russia war. So we can actually entertain going all the way to 3%, but in a gradual manner.
That would be great for businesses also. Sana mangyari. All right. Maraming salamat, Prof. Rodilo Balbiera, an economist from the University of Asia and the Pacific. Good morning. Stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Now, President Bongbong Marcos dismisses health issues after lifting sacks of rice during a public event in Manila. News 5's Maricel Halili has this report.
President Bongbong Marcos is flexing his strength again, and literally at that, as he led the launch of the Biyayang Bigas program in Manila. In lieu of dumbbells, he showed off using 10-kilo bags of rice. Just last Monday, April 13, the chief executive did jumping jacks and even jogged in front of the media. All these to prove wrong social media posts saying his health is on the decline. There were even reports of PBBM being rushed to the hospital because of a health emergency. But the bags of rice were not there for the president's use for exercise. The food items were for the city of Manila's working class, including security guards and sales ladies. Under the Biyayang Bigas program, recipients got 6 bags of the staple, their allotted share for the whole year.
Itong programa na ito ay aming ginawa dahil ay talagang tinutugunan natin ang lalong-lalo na lahat ng mga kababayan nating nangangailangan ng lahat ng mga iba't ibang bagay. Ngunit ang nangunguna dyan ay yung pagkain. At sa pagkain, tayo mga Pilipino ay pag pinag-usapan ng pagkain, kailangan bigas.
80,000 middle-class workers are listed as beneficiaries in the country's capital. And according to the president, the rest of the Philippines will get rice subsidies as well. 15 billion pesos has been released as local government support fund to sustain the initiative. Local governments are tasked to lead the distribution of rice as they are supposed to know who most need it in communities they govern.
Alam naman natin, pag tumaas ang presyo ng langis, sabay-sabay, lalong-lalo na ang pagkain. Kaya yun ang binabantayan namin na mabuti. Na kahit papano, na yung hindi ganong kabigat ang magiging epekto sa taong bayan. Yun ang aming binabantayan. Kasi wala tayong magagawa doon sa presyo ng langis. Ngunit sa presyo ng pagkain, yun, meron tayong magagawa.
For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
Meanwhile, President Bongbong Marcos's approval rating slightly improved from November of 2025, while Vice President Sara Duterte's ratings remained largely stable. That is according to the latest survey by research firm WR Numero. About 3 in 10 Filipinos, or 29%, said they are satisfied with Marcos Jr.'s performance in March 2026, marking an 8 percentage point increase from his November 2025 rating of 21%. However, his dissatisfaction rating remained unchanged at 47%. The survey also showed that 44% of Filipinos approved of Vice President Sara Duterte's performance, higher than the 25% who expressed dissatisfaction. Over 1/3, or 31%, remained undecided. Let's get some insights from Dr. Froilan Calilong, faculty member of the University of Santo Tomas Department of Political Science and the Graduate School. Good morning, Prof.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for having me again.
Prof, we need to go through these ratings because you need to explain to us, sir. How would you interpret this 8 percentage point increase in President BBM's satisfaction rating from November 25 to March 2026, considering this was the time when the fuel prices went through the roof?
Well, I think one of the primary considerations here, because there was the parity increase in its net satisfaction rating, is of course how the government is trying to look into the current prices with a more steadfast, resolute. What I mean is that the president immediately tried to. We will want the country to actually immediately started with this declaration of a national state of energy emergency. And however, even if the declaration was actually made, I think it only created an initial thrill, I would say, because the idea of having a national state of emergency is not yet to be fully realized, because we really don't have yet concrete measures in place that will more or less try to push on the effect of this ongoing crisis. Secondly, I think one of the reasons is because the attention has been largely diverted already. Remember that during the height of the president's high disapproval ratings. This was also during the height of the flood control scandal. There were a lot of rallies and protests going on left and right, which affected definitely his popularity and the level of satisfaction that the people actually has in his administration. And I think what also mattered to many of the respondents is the fact that somehow the president is trying to listen to the people. Remember, there were some key changes in his cabinet as of the moment, especially those that were perceived to be underperforming cabinet officials. He actually already replaced them, which gives us a more or less greater understanding of the dynamics involved, especially in the palace, that the government somehow is still trying to find its bearing and it's trying to make the people understand that they're really doing something good for the country. However, I think with all the political noise happening right now, especially with the impeachment right now that is still hogging the headlines, I think it makes the people also less reflective of the fact that the government should be more focused and dead set on how to navigate through this crisis.
But you mentioned, Prof, all the dissatisfaction of the people or the drop in his satisfaction rating during this anger of the people on the corruption scandal, particularly the flood control scandal, and none of this has really been resolved. No, I mean you have the arrest of Zaldy Co, but none of the quote-unquote big fish, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee report has not yet been released or even signed by enough members of the Senate as of now. So why have the people forgotten about this already, or is that something that they've moved on from?
No, definitely not. I don't think that I don't see it as the case. However, what is apparent here primarily is that the government somehow is trying to give some piecemeal attributes, especially to this particular corruption scandal, by forging the number one, the ICI, although it did not really come up with a concrete results primarily for the government. But I think the public is somewhat seeing the dynamics right now that there are so many other issues that also necessitates attention. However, I think it's important that we should not be complacent about this, and that the government we need to be, still um, very resolute regarding how we could make the government become more accountable, especially with the flood control. And I think the arrest of former Congressman Zaldy Co will be a very good step closer to a fuller understanding of what really transpired, including a better appraisal of who are really the architects and the big people behind this multi-billion peso heist, so to speak. So I think it's really about the public also trying to see that there are so many other things that really matters, especially the ongoing crisis right now. And for
Okay.
them, it's important that the government tries to face this head on and to be very decisive about the matter.
Okay. Can you give us context on the numbers, no? 29% satisfaction rating. What does this mean? Is this high? Is this low? Especially for a country of more than 110 million people and compared to previous administrations or presidents. So how can we understand this figure?
This is not certainly something that the administration should be very happy about to begin with. This I believe is certainly not high.
Okay.
I think this is really quite low, especially if you're going to compare it from his predecessor's numbers. Wherein PRRD, the former president, during his time, I believe in the same time he was enjoying somewhat around 70 to 75
Wow.
percent satisfaction rating, which is quite high, considering that we were during that time in the midst of a pandemic. So, if you could recall, Pierre Hardy was also the one of the presidents I could recall that went out of his position or left his presidency on a very high note. And think this is something that the President Marcos could actually try to replicate. And I think if ever he will get his bearings straight and he will really try to focus more on governance and less on politics, I think he still has time to recover and maybe increase his numbers, make it a bit better.
Is there anything to do with the fact that the Uni team is no longer united? And there was, of course, this ongoing clash with VP Sara. Did that impact his satisfaction rating?
Well, definitely, because number one, the people back on the promise of the unity back in 2022, where they were thinking that for the first time we will have a united front. I mean, the two highest officials will be in the same boat, and that we will be able to face everything head on because there is a more formidable force in place. But of course, this did not happen. And when you look at the support base of the vice president, definitely this is still very commendable at this point in time compared to the president, which gives us the clear impression that if the vice president actually decided to throw her towel and try to run throw her hat in the presidential race in 2022, then there's a big chance that she could have snatched it from BBM. However, of course, those things are no longer the thing in place. And what we're seeing right now is that the vice president is also facing allegations of her own. There are also corruption charges against her. She's facing an impeachment trial of her own. And these things really try to complicate the matter, especially from the perception of the public. Because what they feel right now is that what's going on is that we're still being drowned by too much political noise, and so governance, the desire to really make the lives better for the people is being set aside.
That is a good point. No, as an analyst, had this rift not happened, do you feel that the country would have been governed any better?
Well, definitely. There's always strength in unity, and I firmly believe that if there was no animosity that transpired between them, I think we could actually better navigate through whatever problem there is. Of course, number one, we will be able to set aside the impeachment. There will be no impeachment either on the president or the vice president. And like I tell you, this really takes a lot of our time. I mean, many of our congressmen, and the focus greatly is on this. The lens of our politics is actually in this, but we are not really giving too much attention. For example, on key measures and legislative indications that will help us to navigate through this crisis, like the Bayanihan 3, or there are several other pending bills in the Congress right now, which could really be very important, so that we will be able to cushion the effects of this ongoing crisis and inflation at the moment. So if they are on the same boat, I would say we will have less of distractions. There will be less of political bickerings, and definitely there will be more of governmental efficiency in place.
Let's go to the satisfaction rating of the Vice President, 44% approval rating, although there's a 25% dissatisfaction. In what sense of her performance got this type of high approval, if you can call it high? And what's your explanation for this, despite the fact that she's in the midst of an impeachment process?
Well, number one, I think one of the key considerations here is that number one, she is no longer part of the cabinet, so she has already fully emancipated herself from the cabinet and from the control of the president. So she is able to navigate things, and she's able to calibrate and better things on her own. So she is able to craft policies or mechanisms or programs of support for the public directly without any consideration about the executive, or if ever there will be overlapping of programs that she's having with the chief executive. So I mean, she is able to create policies and programs right now on a more independent platform, and she's able to actually create these programs and policies that directly is being funneled to the public. And I think this is what many of our countrymen are actually seeing, in spite of her not being in the limelight anymore, but she's silently doing her thing. And I think no, no. Number two is that we cannot disassociate the fact that she is a Duterte, and the Duterte brand still carries a very strong following, especially in Visayas, and certainly a big portion of Mindanao. And this actually is a big boost to actually solidify her net satisfaction and trust ratings at the moment. And thirdly, I think the mere fact that she is not really getting herself too immersed in this political noise, especially those that are being thrown at her, gives her the impression that is playing the underdog card, that she is not willingly clashing with these forces that she feels that is there because they're just politically harassing her. So I think this kind of silence that she has, and that she's just focused on what she's doing as a vice president
Interesting.
in services to the public. I think that is what makes the public understand her work better.
Interesting. Prof, before we let you go, I'm just very curious. Do you expect her to win in the 2028 elections? And also, what kind of president would you anticipate Sara Duterte to be?
Well, too early to say at the very least to give a pronouncement. But if you're going to be basing it on empirical evidences as well as the pre-poll surveys, I think the numbers actually are in her favor. Of course, there are many other things that could happen or that could transpire between now and 2028. So we cannot simply say that that is already a sure win for her. I think many people, especially those that are aligned with the pink and the yellow camps, are also trying to come up with a formidable opponent for her. Although it's a clear case that she is the candidate to beat right now, but it's definitely something that is not yet cast in stone because of the ongoing impeachment trial and many other things that could happen. But if the indicators are to be the gauge for this, I think she has a very good chance of winning in 2028. Now, as to the question about how she will be as a president, well, I think she will be able to bring her mettle from a local perspective as well, because she was a former mayor, and of course she is also a lawyer. So we tend to look at it from a different angle. Of course, lawyers they think differently, and they look at things in a more detailed manner. So I think she's going to be a very detailed, very specific, down to the detail kind of a president. And of course, kita naman natin, no? We know for a fact how she carries herself. She's tough. I think she's going to be very, very tough. Maybe even tougher than her father before. And that's something that maybe many of our countrymen, especially those who would want to wish to have a populist president, is actually aspiring for.
Very interesting analysis there. Thank you so much for your time and insights, political analyst Froilan Calilong. Thank you, Prof.
Not levels and navigator.
Don't go away. More matters to discuss after this short break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. A measure seeking to reduce the value-added tax from 12% to 10% has been filed in the Senate to help cushion the impact of the Middle East conflict on consumers. Senator Bam Aquino said the proposed cut is aimed at protecting the middle class, which he said is also being affected by rising fuel prices and inflation brought about by the global crisis. He noted that the Department of Energy estimates the effects of the situation could last up to a year. The senator said that while VAT reduction can provide immediate relief, it should also be complemented by stronger tax administration to ensure efficiency and fairness in revenue collection. Over to sports. The Creamline Cool Smashers are back in the finals. That's after surviving a tough semifinals run in the Premier Volleyball League All-Filipino Conference. The Cool Smashers defeated Farm Fresh in 4 sets to book their 15th finals appearance. Now they set their sights on reclaiming the title as they face Signal Super Spikers in a best-of-3 championship series. Game 1 is set on Tuesday, that's next week, at the Smart Araneta Coliseum as Creamline looks to complete its comeback and return to the top of the PVL. And with temperatures climbing, pet owners are reminded to look out for heat stress and ensure that their pets stay cool, safe, and hydrated. Mobile journalist Danie Laurel has this report.
Does your fur friend pant more than usual? That could be a sign of dehydration or heat exhaustion. As the heat intensifies, some pet owners are starting to notice changes in their fur babies, like Cheryl, who grew concerned over her dog Toby's breathing.
Actually, we noticed ever since 2 weeks ago, he's always struggling to breathe, even though he's just going on short walks. And then we bring him out morning and evening. It's not that hot naman, pero when he's inside, lagi hinihingal.
Signs like these may be simple, but experts warn that these could be early symptoms of heat-related illnesses.
Usually the misconception na palay natin is that they can tolerate heat as much as we do, no? But we have to consider, or dapat natin malaman, na the only way that they can expel heat is through breathing, no? So, yun ang isa sa mga dapat nating bantayan, the breathing pattern of our dogs when they are exposed to extreme temperatures.
One of the top risks this dry season is heat stroke, so watch out for excessive panting, drooling, and disorientation. And when these happen, immediate action is crucial.
The best thing that we can do pag ang ating mga pets ay nakaka-experience or napapansin nyo na magkaka-event ng heat stroke, lalo na yung excessive panting or yung abnormal na yung kanilang breathing pattern, dapat basain muna sila ng cold water, but not ice water or not directly putting ice on their body. Kasi nga, a sudden change or shift in temperature, mas magiging grabe yung condition nila.
To prevent this further, some pet owners are now adjusting their routines, like walking their dogs later in the day.
I was warned by my doctor not to walk her out in the street like midday. So now it's like 5 p.m. so it's cooler, so I walk her at this time or a little bit later. And then also a lot of water.
And making sure their pets stay cool and hydrated.
It's summer, we actually gave her another fan, and then she has her dedicated fan nakatutok lang sa bed niya. Pretty much the AC is on the whole day, just so that it's cooler in the condo. And their water bowl, we make sure we change their water daily, then we always give them cold water.
Experts also recommend proper ventilation, clean water, and simple cooling treats like ice cubes. Because in extreme heat, it's not just the people who need protection. Our pet friends do too. Kapatid Mobile journalist Danie Laurel, we are One News.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we have given you just the right start to your morning. This has been Dr. Danie Laurel signing off after 8.5 years and 3,000 broadcasts with the network. Maraming salamat team, maraming salamat crew. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas, kapatid. We are One News, all sides, all the time.